Hello, I'm Pacu. I'm a developer relations engineer, um, working as a grantee for CZG, and this is all-time high in collaboration. So we're all-time high in collaboration, and I asked myself, are you sure about that? Well, um, let's start with a little bit of history to do a recap. So in the beginning, there was only one organization running Zcash, and then there were two, and then some more, and others joined as well, and then others naturally faded out as in any project, and others also were brought to life, like Zcash community grants, and also we had ambassadors joining globally, and also new teams like Shielded Labs and Y Wallet joined the ecosystem, and we also had difficulties, and we had to have our ambassadors have be a little bit in pause for a while, but we prevailed, and many more teams joined, like Kedit, EasyCash, ZecHub, and then more teams joined the ecosystem, like ChainSafe, ZachRocks, RedDev, Brave, and FBF, and we have ambassadors back, the ambassador programs back, and a lot of global communities, and that's why I started to think about that we are, all-time high in collaboration, because I think there have never been so many teams around, and many more keep joining, and like Maya, Mir, the Gordian developers, which are contributing to the Zcash extensible wallet interchange format, the ZWIF. And that's why I say we are all-time high in collaboration. And we even wrote a book together, My First Zcash, with the community. And I only mentioned developer teams, and we have a lot of new communities joining in, which are super excited and region focused. And I swear I didn't make this up. And as I was thinking about this presentation, I saw this tweet. There's the link there. And Zcash is one of the top projects by development activity growth. And we had a tremendous growth over the last 30 days. And we have so many projects and ideas. Like Zcash the application is our first priority. We have Zyno, Zebra, CSAs, infrastructure with ZachRocks, and Zingo, Sashi, Y Wallet, Zenith, Full Node, EasyCash, the MayaDex, RedBridge, Zale. We have ZJS, like we're about to have a wet wallet, and so much more. So this is all great, but I think we still have a problem. Is that we have so much to do, and there's still too few people for all the great things we have ahead of us. So why is this happening? Although we're, the more the merrier, and we haven't been so many teams in the whole history, I think that we need to be even more people. We need more teams. We need a broader community of developers and users. So my hypothesis here is that maybe Zcash is a little bit too hard to grasp for newcomers. So I started to think about this, and I did a little bit of introspective and looked inside of our ecosystem and to try to find some answers to this question and to this hypothesis. So I thought, what resources do we have for developer newcomers? Like, I'm going to mostly focus on developers, and I thought, well, we have ZConv, we have Z.cash, and we have the GitHub repositories where the software is. And we have a good parts of this because there's a lot of information from different sources in different formats, and the content has a distinguishable identity, which is good when you're learning. But there are a lot of things to improve, like the information is not well articulated. There's some decentralization, which was the idea, or it is the idea of a decentralized project like Zcash. But then we have a format problem where the way that the contents look like is respond mostly to taste of the author and not like serving maybe a particular goal. And maybe there's no a clear path to follow. It's not internationalized and it has low accessibility for people who need accessible documents. And I thought, that cliche of the grass being always greener on the other side. So I thought, oh, well, what about our neighbors? Like, how are they doing? And I think that our neighbors are like Alio, Namada, Penumbra, and Monero. And by looking at Monero, they have a great grassroots community. But in terms of documentation, they are like in a similar way as we are. And Alio, Namada, and Penumbra do have some lessons to teach us about documentation and welcoming newcomers, because they do follow a more structured approach of offering a single centralized source of truth for their docs. And then when it comes to completeness and the variety and segment the audience, just to have some documents for people that are beginners and some other documents for people that are advanced, and you don't throw just a cryptographic protocol to someone who is just beginning to understand crypto. So I thought, well, who are the best at attracting, welcoming and fostering new DAO communities? And I think the best in class in this kind of field are Avalanche. Crypto Zombies is a great example in Ethereum, but there are a lot, and Cosmos. And what do they have in common? Like, I think they're the best in class, and they have a lot of like vibrant communities. And well, I thought I think there's strong content curation on their side. They have a huge emphasis on design. They have a diverse and appealing formats, and they have structured content depending on your skills. And they're also noticeably resourceful. Like, their content requires a lot of work to create and to maintain, and a lot of resources too. So to continue on this, I did a quick research. I'm not going to go through the whole of it because there's a lot of things that you should just look for the link of this presentation afterwards, and we will publish it. And you should just browse it on your own and not take my word for granted. Just don't trust and verify it. But I did a quick research about how different crypto communities and crypto projects attract and foster newcomers into their communities. So I asked myself, as a newcomer developer, what can they achieve in 1 hour, 1 day, and 1 weekend? I'm assuming that a newcomer is a developer that will do one thing at a time with their full attention. And if there's a lot of errors in their pathway, they will desist and they'll move on. They don't have fidelity yet. So they're just getting their feet wet. And if they all start on a clean slate development machine, this is to take into consideration installation times and whatnot on whatever they're asked to. And I use these assumptions to be able to assess what things took 1 hour, 1 day, or weekend. Okay. So I invite you to go over all of these links and take a look at yourself of what kind of like documentation is behind and educational resources. But for example, when it comes to Zcash, I grab a fuzzy combination between Z.Cash and ZHub. And in 1 hour of roaming around ZHub and Z.Cash, I could learn what is Zcash in a video. I know about the case of Zcash, the HTTPS of blockchains. And in 1 day, I was able to KYC to Gemini and download it as an off-ramp, an on-ramp of ZEC and get a shielded wallet and make a transaction. And then when it came to figuring out what a Zcash weekend would look like, it was a little bit hard to imagine. Obviously, from the resources that a newcomer that knows nothing about ZEC and just has access to these websites and resources that we put out could figure, okay? And when it comes to Avalanche, you have a more defined path. Like you have an intro to blockchain, and in one day you can go as far as like deploying 2 custom L1 blockchains and have them message each other using a tutorial on testnet. And in a week you can just learn to customize an Ethereum EVM and deploy it, for example. And I did the same thing for Alio and Amada and Cosmos. And I invite you to go over these documents and make an idea of what I'm referring to. So what I want to present or propose is to take care of a bit of our Zcash developer experience, our DX. We have user experience, that is UX. We talk about UX a lot. UX being the North Star of many organizations in Zcash, and that we need adoption, we have to have a good user interface and a good user experience for Zcash adoption. But I'm, as a developer, wondering like who will be developing these adoption driving tools, and what's their experience like? What's the experience of working on these tools that will change the user experience? Is that pleasant? Is something that is joyful? Is something that is welcoming? Is something that actually wants you to bring your closest friends and hack together? And that's what I'm thinking about. And that's why I believe that we need to power up our developing experience. And there's a lot of text on this slide. I'm really sorry about that. But I think that to power up our DX, developer experience, we need to design documents and educational resources thinking on what we want others to learn instead of what we want to teach them. So it's a really subtle and very delicate difference, but it is huge. So let's say I'll write an article about Zcash addresses. So if I go with that mentality, I would just pour everything in from the protocol to an article. And that is going to be a complete failure, because what I need to focus on is I want the reader to know this 3 or 4 concepts about Zcash addresses. So when the reader ends reading up my article, I can be sure that at least this 3 or 4 things are in their mind. So then I can follow up other articles and make a path of learning instead of like just trying to pour in all my knowledge or all the protocol knowledge into an article piece. And this is like defining a structure and with scope, audiences, difficulty, and length in mind, so people can begin their learning path and know ahead the effort they'll need and plan their availability to actually tackle on such a wonderful but still complex technology like ZEC. And we need to create material for each segment and curate it So we tell a story that makes these concepts easier. This is very easy to say, but it's very difficult to do. If you try to remember some school books or math books from college, you will start remember those very difficult concepts they use in metaphors that didn't make sense at all. Well, that's the opposite of what we want. So, and since this is very seemingly easy but complex to do, we need to be true to ourselves and actually invest dedicated resources to power up our developer experience. But how do we power up? How to make this even better without centralizing all the documentation? And I think that ZChub is our success case. ZChub is the leading case. I haven't talked to anyone from ZChub. This is a total surprise to them. And I'm bringing their case up because they're great. So inspired by ZChub, I had this idea of, well, what if we make a developer experience consortium, some group that dedicates resources to a common developer experience vision. And this kind of goes along the lines with what Zaki Mannion said yesterday about like decentralizedly work on the same things together. So it could be a nice project to start with that philosophy, if people agree. But what about the expectations of this? It looks similar, like the graphic, everyone collaborating to a dev portal together, the nights of the developer experience. But then in reality, it might not look like that and just be a poor website being thrown a lot of documentation. So I thought, well, there has to be another way. So I thought of the nerdy Zeal DAO, for example. And a DAO that is in charge of designing and curating contributions that will get added to a knowledge base would be something decentralized and very inspired on ZChub. This idea would be that everyone, like maybe one representative from each team, could be appointed to propose, review, approve, or disapprove content that could go to that portal, and also review external contributions. I asked an AI to draw a nerdy Zeal, and that's the result. So I advise people to actually hire professionals to do these things. And for example, hire Mini from Zcash Brazil to do real design work, and she's great, so I really recommend her. And well, these nerdy Zeal DAO, like, what are the good parts? Well, it's not centralized. It's not centralized at all. It's a DAO, so but it's hard to do. Like, it's possibly censorship resistant, as long as like a majority doesn't collude to censor others. But it's time consuming, and we are like putting more work upon ourselves, and we are spread thin. But what if I told you that it could be tokenizable through CSAs, and we can have some token, like for example, Free2Z has 2Zs that people can give you when you create content. So there could be some sort of bounties where we could incentivize a tokenized ecosystem for curating, reviewing, and rewarding the best participants in the developer experience documentation and all. You could earn by contributing and use also a proven tool like the DAO. And I thought, well, what could we make this simpler? So I thought, okay, the DAO has a concept that is called SUB DAO. So if we marry this nerdy Zeal DAO as sub DAO of a parent DAO that already exists. I repeat, I didn't ask or consult with ZconVI anything of this. It's just a theory. We could plug this developer experience nerdy Zeal SUB DAO into a parent DAO that could also participate in the current ZconVI bounties. This sub DAO could actually be curation and technical review of external contributions as well, and also can produce their own content. But the good parts of this is that it's not that hard to do, because there is already a DAO that has done all the heavy lifting, has been working very well for some time. But the downside is not that decentralized, because a sub DAO is not fully autonomous. It's possibly censorship resistant, because technically, unless the parent is the censoring actor, the parent DAO owns the sub DAO, so it could be some kind of like adversarial dynamic that is technically possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. And then the same dynamics of like earn by contributing and not that time consuming come true, but it adds overhead to ZconVI. There's still a lot of work that somebody has to do. So sometimes like less is more. And I say, well, why don't we explore a humble bundle approach? Just create a new GitHub repository, spin up an extra blog, which is what most of these organizations I mentioned, like Cosmos, Avalanche, Penumbra, use, and maybe let representatives of all the organizations I featured there have a maintainer. And we could recruit Zcashers to do design work, curriculum, etc. via grants from or ZconVI bounties or FBF grants or CF minor grants, and just take it from there. But I think it's really important to do something about it. And the possibilities are endless. And I think that these might be maybe silly ideas, and you can come up with better ideas. I'm sure you will. So let's build it together. Okay, that's my call to action. So how can you start contributing? Well, if I'm not a dev, is there a place for me? Sure. If you're a teacher, you could design a curriculum to learn about Zec. If you're a designer, you can make Zcash resources beautiful, readable, and accessible. If you're a merchant, you can create material on how to accept Zec as a payment. If you're just an enthusiast, you can proofread, translate, and review others' material and learn across the way. So anything, if you're a dev or if you're just a non-dev people, just join the Zcash global community. There's a lot of topics there, regional meetups, online events, and more. And if you're a dev, where do I start? Well, join the Zcash R&D Discord, where you can do a lot of things and learn Rust and discuss with devs a lot of things. You can attend Arborist calls where there are core team updates, R&D topics, and an open discussion. And as a good start is just cloning the Zcash DevTool repository and just take it from there and play with the tool. And don't miss yesterday's keynote on the DevTool from Chris Nauticum. So I think we have a little bit of time for questions. And I had a question already there. So in your opinion, what is the most important ingredient for high quality collaborations? Well, I think that it is generosity. To collaborate with others, it means that you need to put aside a little bit your most pressing and urgent matters to think about what others' problems are and work with them. And you can only do that if you're generous. So that I think that's the most important ingredient. It's not technical knowledge, is or expertise. It's just combining generosity with all of that. And we have another question. Do you have suggestions for how Zcash could reach more collaborators, and which ways are the most effective in finding new people? I think that the most effective is like peer-to-peer. Bring your friends first, and then take it from there. Then what do you think about the problem that technical documentation gets outdated fast? Can it be hard to it can be hard to maintain, especially if it's too far away from the code? Yes, I think that's a real problem. High level documentation could be away from the code, and then more specific documentation could be generated from code documents, so that when you update a code and change a behavior, you also change it. You change the documentation there, and then you could have some automation that picks it up. And reviewers will have to do their part in saying, hey, you've changed this behavior here, but it's outdated documentation, so please update that as well. What is the best way to discover what new devs want to learn? I think that maybe reaching out, doing surveys as the user, Zcash user surveys are a way of discovering. And when it comes to UX, what ingredient do you think differentiates Zcash from other blockchain projects? Well, I think the secret ingredient is privacy. Privacy, it's the ingredient that makes Zcash wonderful, but also somehow a little bit complicated, because there are a lot of compromises you can't do. Shambo went a little bit about that when he talked about like scaling Zcash. Like, there are a lot of tricks that you can do in transparent blockchains that you can't do in Zcash, because you will be losing privacy. So our secret ingredient is both a blessing and sometimes a little bit of a problem we need to work around. All right, I think we're about time. Really sorry if I spoke a little bit fast. I think at YouTube you can like put like 0.5 speed on this. Thank you very much for all your questions. And this is ZecDev. This is the beautiful logo that Mini from Zcash Brazil made for my GitHub organization, where I put some of my projects. Questions are always welcome. I really thank you for all the support that you give me. I'm just a dev that has a lot of people behind, and I have your support, and I'm really thankful to ZZG and to all the teams that collaborate with me daily to do everything I do. And I'm really grateful to you all for coming to this talk. And sure, if you want to ping me, you can shoot me an email or finding me in the forums or in the RD Discord. Thank you very much for attending, and have a great ZCon virtual to you all.